Good afternoon, everyone. Will Dupree here in the KXAN Live studio. We are showing you live right now at the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, where a press conference will be held to share the latest developments in a cold case. What we know now is that a 30-year-old cold case there in Williamson County, the victim had not been known previously until this week. We learned after 30 years that the victim in the Corona Girl case is Sue Ann Huskey. You can see her name there listed on the lower third as we await this press conference. We confirmed yesterday, our reporter Alex Capriello talked to the family members of Sue Ann Huskey, and they told us that she was the one who was found back in 1989. For all this time, the sheriff's office has not known her name. They only called her Corona Girl because of the shirt that had that logo on it when she was found. Her body was located on September 1989 on the side of I-35 in the Gerald area. And for all of these years, these 30 years now, that woman her name has never been known. It's just always been known as Corona Girl by investigators there at the sheriff's office. But we do know now that she has a name. And I want to show you all really quickly a full screen with some information about her that we know. The sketch you see right there is a new sketch the sheriff's office released last summer. They had an officer working on the cold case unit at the sheriff's office who released this new sketch of Corona Girl. But her name is Sue Ann Huskey, and we want to say that over and over and over again because for 30 years she's been known entirely by something else. Now, the family confirmed yesterday that she is indeed the cold case victim in this homicide. Her body was found back on September 25th, 1989, and we want to reiterate that she was called Corona Girl because she was found wearing a shirt with the brand name on it. This summer, again, these are two sketches that the sheriff's office had released back in July last year. The one on the right is the most recent one. The one on the left was the one that was done back in 1989 after she was found, her body was found. And we are still unsure exactly if this new sketch that you can see right here is what may have led to a break in this case. We're going to hopefully find that information out when the sheriff comes out in just a moment to talk about this break, this big break in this case. We had reported previously that the sheriff's office had identified a woman killed 40 years ago, last summer as well. She had previously been called Orange Socks, and now her name is known after extensive searches and a DNA history and the help of a volunteer group that works on particular cold cases where the victim's name is not known just yet. And it appears that in this case, the Corona Girl case, that helped here too. If you take a look live right now in Williamson County, this is at the sheriff's office in Georgetown. A group of people has come to sit, and we believe this might be the family members of Sue Ann Huskey, who was the woman that was found 30 years ago, and her name has not been known until now. There you see Sheriff Robert Chody taking the lectern right now. We're going to go live to this and hear what he has to say about this case.
Okay, good afternoon. First, thank you for everybody for showing up. I'd like to start off with introducing myself, Sheriff Robert Chody with Williamson County Sheriff's Office. And I'd like to start off with introducing a few people first. If I could introduce to my right is Sergeant McCorney of the Williamson County Cold Case Unit. If you raise your hand so people can identify you. Detective Jason Cox with the Cold Case Unit, as well as Natalie Murray with the Cold Case Unit. And then if I can have the remaining Cold Case Unit, please raise your hand that are here. At this time, I'm also going to introduce an Angie Lennard, Tracy Morgan, and a Ben Morgan. These are family members of Deborah Jackson, as you know, of the Orange Socks case. They weren't here for the last case that we did when we did the press conference, and they would like to take a few moments to give you a few words. Deborah, if you'd like to come up here. Angie, I'm sorry.
I just want to start off by saying thank you to Natalie. Without that drawing, and then of course to Jason for answering the phone that Sunday afternoon. also want to thank all the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Chody, of course. Everybody's been super nice to all of us and treated us with utmost respect. The DNA Doe Project, Kevin, thank you. I would have been 17 when my sister got killed. She would have been 23. My best memory of her is her love for music. I can tell you her favorite band is Bad Company. I find it kind of crazy that I've lived here about 20 years and she's literally been in my backyard all this time. I had no idea. I do want to thank everyone that was there for her when we didn't know. She's got a headstone with a single rose engraved on it, and that was our mother's favorite flower. And I just want to thank everyone that has been there for her. Thank y'all.
We, of course, are talking about the Corona Girl case, but those were family members on the Orange Socks case. Deborah Jackson was identified as the victim in that case, and those were her family members talking, so we were unaware that they were going to be speaking today. But again, let's take a listen back to this press conference.
I have Kevin, and Missy Koski, and Lori Yaff. And briefly, I'm just going to show you a quick PowerPoint on the case that we're here to speak about specifically. And before I do that, our partnership with the following organizations are the DNA Doe Project and the Hudson Alpha Discovery, International Commission on Missing Persons, Justin Lowe, Dr. Gregory Maydoun, DNA Solutions, Bodie Selmark, GED Match, Family Tree DNA, NCMEC, University of North Texas Health Center, and Name Us. We're all part of this investigation and helping us to the point where we're at now. As you all are aware, the cold case of what is called the Corona case. This was our first forensic artist drawing that was released back in the 1989 era, and obviously dubbed the Corona case because of the t-shirt she was wearing. September 25th, 1989. The deceased female was located in the Jarrow area off of IH-35 near mile marker 277. She was a female wearing black pants, again Corona t-shirt, about 5 foot tall, weighing roughly 120 pounds, with light brown hair. The Travis County medical examiner ruled the manner of death a homicide by a firearm. The attempts to identify the victim were unsuccessful, and the case, of course, was dubbed the Corona Girl case. To give you some perspective of why we do a cold case unit, in this particular case, it was 30 years, 3 months, and 21 days before Corona Girl was given a name, which I will give in a moment, which you already know. It was 363 months and 21 days as of yesterday when family was notified. Approximately 11,062 days. Victim is identified as a Sue Ann Huskey, goes by Sue Ann. She was 17 years of age from Sulphur Springs, Texas. At this moment, I'm going to hand over to Sergeant McCorney of the cold case, who will give a brief timeline of the investigation. I will remind you that this is still under an investigation, an ongoing investigation, so details will be brief. But Sergeant McCorney, if you would.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, I'm Sergeant, first name John, J-O-H-N, last name Pokorny, P-O-K-O-R-N-Y, and I'm proud to be the sergeant of the cold case unit, and thank you, Sheriff Chody. First of all, I'm very proud to sit here and stand here in front of y'all, both families. What an adventure, what a long road that we took to get to where we're at, and the investigation is just starting. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're proud to be here today. So what I'm gonna do is kind of go through our investigative timeline on where we started and how we got here today. So Sheriff Chody took office from the cold case unit and we started looking into the case. What we did is we looked at all prior DNA testing, went through all the evidence to see what we got, what can we move forward, and of course went through all the reports. We went through and confirmed that all information involving the case is been uploaded to the proper databases and websites to make sure that all information about the case is out there, and if there's any missing puzzle out there that someone's identified, that we can link those. So in April 2018, we contacted the DNA Doe Project for assistance with this case, as well as Deborah Jackson, also our still unidentified Rebel Red case. DNA Doe Project is a vital part of how we move these cases forward, and we can't thank them enough for what they've done for us as well. August 2018, we sent a 2 to Bodie Labs up in Virginia. What we try to do with that 2 was try to get DNA extracted and try to get a profile that's used for genealogy testing. We did 1 round. It wasn't enough. We did a 2nd round with that in September 2018. We do additional teeth, and still our results were still not enough for genealogy testing. So with cold cases, it's an unbelievable roller coaster that we're going through, and this is just part of that process we're going through. In October 2018, we, along with our evidence personnel at the Sheriff's Office, we obtained additional bone and teeth, and we submitted that also for further DNA testing to help build on what we have already to try to get that profile. Bodie Selmark, DNA Joe, in our cold case unit began research and advancements with DNA. So all the results we were getting was not enough to go through genealogy. So what Kevin Lord with DNA Doe did a lot of research for us and figured out what's the next step, what's the best for us to move this case forward. He contacted the lab out in Netherlands, and we'll get to that, but that's what helped get the case where we are today. We contacted the University of North Texas in November 2018 to obtain additional extracts, and we shipped them off to combine with what we had. January 2019, DNA Solutions performed additional DNA extraction from the teeth. So we already had numerous amounts of teeth have been sent off, numerous DNA has been compiled, so we think we're getting to the point where we're going to be where we can go through genealogy. March 2019, it was determined through chip-based genotyping that it failed, and the fire generated from all the testing we did prior to was not enough. It wasn't suitable for genealogy. So we hit a bump in the road. After months of testing and a lot of man hours and money spent, we're at a brick wall. April 2019, additional molars were sent back to DNA Solutions for additional DNA. So that was our kind of shooting from the hip, if you will, trying to get more DNA to make this work. Those molars and other bone tissue were sent to the National Commission on Missing Persons Lab in the Netherlands for the advanced DNA extraction. So we're doing DNA Solutions in Oklahoma, compiling that data, and then Kevin Lord, DNA Doe Project, said, let's try the Netherlands. They're the experts in extracting DNA from bone, and that's probably our best choice to move forward at this point. So we did that. DNA extraction was completed by the International Commission on Missing Persons, and the results seemed promising. Still wasn't a home run yet, and worthy of proceeding to whole genome sequencing. So we're definitely further than what we were. October 2019, DNA extracted from ICMP was received at Hudson Alpha in Alabama for whole genome testing. So we're moving now. All right, we got some progress. We're advancing our DNA profile, so we think we're getting to the point where we're going to be able to do something. November 2019, whole genome sequencing was performed by Hudson Alpha. The raw data was in process and passed to Dr. Gregory Magoon, who handled bioinformatics and generated files suitable for upload to GEDmatch. DNA Doe Project began genealogy. So at that point, we had what we needed. Now we're kicking over to DNA Doe to do their full testing and doing a lot of massive work, building the family tree to try to identify Corona Girl. December 2019, DNA Doe Project, they began receiving results. They, first off, their quick capture of what they have done. They identified her obviously as Caucasian European with Southern roots. The Corona Girl at that point was loaded to family tree DNA. December 2019, DNA Doe Project provided cold case investigator with potential match to Corona Girl. We immediately got it on Friday. We were already ramping up the cars by the weekend, and Monday, early that morning, Detective Jason Cox and Detective Joe Sapien, they were headed out to Sulphur Springs to meet with the family to get DNA samples to compare those samples. January 2020, just yesterday we got confirmation, but Corona Girl and potential family members' DNA was submitted DNA Solutions for comparison less than 2 weeks ago. The results indicated that in fact Corona Girl was their missing family member. Corona Girl was then positively identified as Sue Ann Huskey. So it's a long process. They were shocked when they got the phone call from Detective Cox, but it's important, and the sheriff will cover down too as well. But just to have a quick moment on this is, you know, the GED match, the family tree, all that genealogy research. For one, you know, people want to know where they came from, right? But it's important for us law enforcement that you opt into that DNA, do those tests, and don't opt out, right? This is what opting in for law enforcement does, right? We identify cases 40 years, 30 years, you know. There's a case from the 1900s that was just done by DNA Doe Project, so it's very important you opt in. And with that, I appreciate it. Thank you all. And Sheriff.
And Kevin Lord, can I have you come up as well? And if I may just make a few comments that I think it's very important to reiterate what Sergeant McCorney said in reference to opting in for a genealogy. In every one of our cases, with the Warren Stocks case, Deborah Jackson case, and Sue Ann's case, you could essentially have a fifth cousin out there in Seattle, Washington that could be exposed to some type of crime, and if it's not for opting into a program like this, a crime can be solved. So we really want to reiterate that program. Do you have a statement to make?
Just going to explain a little bit about it.
I'm going to let Kevin Lord from the DNA Doe Project say.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Lord with the DNA Doe Project. It's Kevin, L-O-R-D. First, I wanted to thank the Williamson County Sheriff's Office for entrusting us and assisting with this case. When we first uploaded Corona Girl's DNA to GEDmatch and FT Family Tree DNA, we had matches that were only in the third to fourth cousin range, which really gives us literally thousands and thousands of possibilities of who she could be. And so we began building out family trees for all of the top DNA matches. We soon found that two significant ancestral lines from these DNA matches had common ancestors that both went back to Arkansas, and they did not appear to be related to each other. So this gave us a clue that maybe her family went back to Arkansas, and so we began searching for marriages in genealogical records that might show how these two different lines crossed. And so we found a couple that married shortly after 1910 that tied these two lines together, and that was one set of Sue Ann's great-grandparents. So from there, we began building out descendants of these great-grandparents, trying to find someone that fit, that could be Corona Girl. And eventually we came across Sue Ann's family, and we found her birth announcement in Michigan when she was born, just a short line saying there was a baby girl born to these parents on this date. And we eventually also found her fourth grade picture from a yearbook in Arkansas. And we saw that the family had also moved to Texas. We began doing further research, and we found that we found her father's obituary from 2002 that listed her as surviving. And we found her brother's obituary from 2014, however, that listed her as deceased. And both of these obituaries mentioned her using her maiden name, and so we figured if she was alive, we should be able to find records of her in public records and other databases. However, after exhaustive searches, we could find no proof that she was alive and had any kind of impact in these databases. And so that was a really big red flag for us. And so at that time, with all the evidence we had gathered, we presented her as a candidate to the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, and eventually it was confirmed that it was Sue Ann Huskey. I'd like to, on behalf of DNA Doe Project, I'd like to offer our heartfelt condolences to the family. We understand that this can't always bring closure, but we hope that this at least begins to bring answers to the family. And I just wanted to echo Sergeant Picorni's and the Sheriff's statements about uploading to GEDmatch. Cases like these we would not be able to solve if it weren't for people that upload their DNA tests that they take from Ancestry or 23andMe. Take those results, you can upload them to GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA for free, and opt into law enforcement matching. Doesn't mean law enforcement has your DNA, it just allows them to see your DNA matches, and that you show up as a match to any case that they enter. And thank you.
This time I would like to introduce Sue Ann's family. Who is not present is Sue Bryant, the mother of Sue Ann. But I will start with Jackie Delaney, and if you'll approach when I call your name, a sister of Sue Ann. Tasha Huskey, sister of Sue Ann. Michelle Bernard, sister of Sue Ann. Amanda Cantrell, sister of Sue Ann. Lloyd Huskey is a brother of Sue Ann, not present. Shannon Russell, nephew of Sue Ann. And Jason Delaney, brother-in-law of Sue Ann. They have a statement they would like to read.
First, the family would like to thank the Williamson County Sheriff Office, cold case, Miss Murray, the DNA doe. Without these, we would never have found our sister. They have given our sister back, and now we can take her home. And after 30 years of not knowing where she was or how she was, you always have it on your heart, in your mind, wondering where you're at, sister. We lost our father in 2002. He grieved over his baby girl, not knowing where she was. But we're very grateful that we have our mother still with us to find her baby girl and bring her home. We have closure. Our little sister was amazing. She never met a stranger. She was a happy, bubbly, spoiled little girl. She was 17. A typical 17-year-old, just living life, being happy. She enjoyed, being with her friends, going swimming to the lake. She enjoyed her, nieces and nephews, playing with them outside. And, they were little.
She
But
was the youngest of us all.
She was the baby
Of 7.
baby sister of 7. But throughout our process, with our sister, we want to let the public know, if you have any family members missing, we advise you to please report missing. Do the genealogy. Get the DNA in there. Because if they don't have it, they won't find it. And don't assume that they're missing, reported missing. Double check, make sure. And if anybody out there has any information on Sue Ann, please contact the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and give them any information you have. That's all we ask for the closure, and thank y'all very much.
I want to remind everybody this is an ongoing investigation, and we are seeking the public's help with any information in Sue Ann, also known as Corona Girls case. We are limited on what we can share. If you have questions for the family or for the investigators or the DNA Doe Project, we'll try to answer them the best we can. I would like to express my gratitude to all those involved, specifically our cold case unit under the leadership of Sergeant McCorney. This is the second case that Williamson County Sheriff's Office in less than 2 years has been able to identify victims of a crime. And we have 2 of those families to demonstrate what that means to them after one in 40 years case and another in 30 years case. I'm extremely, extremely proud of the work that they're doing. And it's not simple, as you just heard Sergeant McCordy say, of just having DNA and just doing some work. You heard the term, the Netherlands is where we ship some of this DNA. And by using the DNA Doe Project's guidance on how to gather that DNA, it takes money and time, which our cold case unit and the DNA DOE project did, and we got a result. This was just the first part of a long process. So if the family will join me, Ms. Jackson, if your family would join me, I'd be glad to have you up here in case for any questions. I would like to tell everybody in reference to Jackson family that Deborah Jackson is actually a resident of Williamson County, and when her sister was found, I'm sorry? Angie, I'm sorry. Angie is a resident of Williamson County, and she lived here for 20 years not knowing her sister was a victim of a crime here in Williamson County. And it wasn't until she saw the artist work of Natalie's that her sister was identified. So if the family would like to come up here, both families, if you have any questions for anybody, Kevin, if you and your people would like to come up here, we may not allow a question to be answered, so please be patient with us if you have questions. If not, we'll conclude. Any questions?
Kevin, can you go back and one of the things that struck me is that the break came with a marriage in 1910 in Arkansas?
Yeah, we don't know we couldn't find the exact marriage record to know exactly when they were married. We could see that I think the first child of this couple was born in 1914, and I don't believe they were married in 1910 on that census. So we're looking at census records that that's how we were able to tell that they were married. But we basically we saw like we had matches. DNA matches that led to this kind of line of families, and then DNA matches led to this line of families. And so basically searched just in the genealogical databases in Arkansas, in that area, are there any marriages or people married to each other that had this name and that name that came together? And so.
And this trail all began with someone, would you say in Alabama, putting in a genetic DNA profile, or how did that start?
I don't remember offhand exactly where the DNA matches were located, but
it wasn't.
It was none. No, there was no one in the immediate family. They were.
Some of your kinfolk in Alabama.
Yeah, they were in the range of third cousins, fourth cousins. I'm sure people that they probably don't even know. I mean, most people don't know their third or fourth cousins.
You were able to bring it all the way back to the text.
Somebody in a database?
Yeah, someone that
Somebody
had uploaded, taken a DNA test with Ancestry DNA or 23andMe, and then they specifically uploaded that to GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA and said that they wanted to opt in to help law enforcement. And so through those DNA matches, even though they were fairly distant, we were able to put everything together by seeing how it's kind of like building a puzzle. You see, you see how these two families connect together and how this connects together. All the different DNA matches connect together, and as you keep connecting them, you can kind of narrow down that search field. And so once you get it narrowed down far enough, generally we look for someone that we think could be the unidentified person's great-grandparents, and then we can start building out descendants and try to find someone that might be missing.
I have a question for some of the family members who are working with us. This have to be enormously painful to not know for 30 years.
Yes, ma'am.
If you'll come up and speak to the microphone, can you describe the mix of emotions? Because very few people have been in your shoes. What is this like to know so long and then suddenly somebody calls you?
It's overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming.
A shock.
After 30 years, you're not knowing. And it literally, the last 3 weeks, we have basically just been here. I mean, we don't know what to think. It's hard to understand everything. And you're shocked.
You imagine
Just
what she's
imagine.
been through. Why was she here? You get 50 million things going through you, and you're just overwhelmed with everything. And then it's just overwhelming.
She didn't live here. She lived in Sulphur Springs, and her body was found here. And that is one thing that we don't know why. And you get a phone call like that, and you're wondering what. And it's just so overwhelming. You can even hardly speak or catch your breath.
Did you think that an answer would come one day as we got further?
We
away?
hoped.
Always hoped and
We
prayed.
always hoped and prayed we would find out.
When we got the phone call from Jason,
that he wanted to meet with us, that it was possible. The day after Christmas, to me, that was a miracle. That was a blessing.
That was our Christmas.
That was our Christmas. If it come out true to be our sister, that was our Christmas
That was
that
our
we've
Christmas.
been wanting.
For years.
There's no other way to explain it.
She was our
I mean-
baby sister, and she was very spoiled by all of us. And it's very hard with a loved one.
Can you tell me when she disappeared? What was going on then? She just left home one day? She went
Yeah.
to school? Or how
More or
did
less.
this happen?
Well, over 30 years, that's what we said and thought and thought and thought. We narrowed it down 3 months when she lived with my sister here.
And you guys are all here together.
She is,
How can you describe your relationship with her? Were you guys all really close?
yes,
Yes.
very
We were a very
close.
close family.
I said she was a spoiled little girl.
Yeah, there was 5 of us girls. We were very close. She was our baby. She was Sissy. That's what we called her, was Sissy. We didn't call her Sammy, we called her Sissy.
She's very
That was our baby
likable.
sister.
Never met a stranger. She was very good girl.
Yeah, it's going
That's
back.
the Sissy. That's Sissy.
When was the last time you guys saw her?
Been 30 years.
You guys remember like the conversation or what you guys were doing?
No comment. We're still having it investigated.
Was she a senior in high school then?
No, ma'am.
No.
Was she a junior?
No comment.
Where do you guys live? Now, do you guys live in North Texas or Arkansas? Just so you
I
came
live
I
here-
live in Sulphur Springs.
Okay.
Michelle lives in New Springs, and Jackie lives in Mississippi.
I live in-
So you all came here because they called you?
Because it's our sister.
What's it been like these past 3 decades? You know, I know that you have to live your life and you move on, but,
Birthdays,
you know, birthday.
Birthdays,
Birthdays.
Christmas.
Christmas.
What does that emptiness feel like? And
You don't want to know.
It's really hard to explain unless you are walking in them shoes.
We get together every holiday and we sit up half the night and we talk about her every year.
Memories.
Memories. And that's what we do.
What would you say to the families that they still have members who are already disappeared for
Yes.
years? They haven't found.
Anybody that has a family member that's been missing for a long time, that's what they need to do. They need to get their DNA in the system and get into
Genealogy.
like 23andMe.
And you must feel some appreciation for these strangers who just got
Hey,
into that.
yeah.
Yes.
I just, I got that 23andMe for Christmas. My son here did, and like he said, I mean, you go from first to fourth cousin, never known any of the names.
So you literally got a 23andMe this Christmas and the next day y'all get a phone call?
No,
that
no,
has
no.
nothing to do with
No,
me and my
no,
wife
no,
bought it
no,
after
no.
Christmas of
We just did that for a family
Oh, no, I'm
thing,
not saying
just
it's
for our
rich, but I'm saying
ancestors.
chronologically, you guys were giving each other these gifts of DNA
My
testing?
son, not just me and my son.
Okay. And then you got the call the next day, not directly related though?
Right.
So it coincided.
Not related at all.
Not related. at
Not
all.
related.
But we had been looking at Name Us, and I had been looking on the web for 3 or 4 years, because I'd been calling her, and we had found a Jane Doe on Name Us, was in,
And another,
and it wasn't.
yeah, it was not her. We've just been looking around, and anything that would pop up, we would check it out, more or less, and that's about all we can say about that.
Do you remember this T-shirt that she was found wearing?
It's been 30 years.
Jackie, you talked about this emptiness and how every year y'all will always talk about Sue Ann, where is she? Today, is the emptiness gone?
No.
No.
Or it's been replaced?
It never will
No.
be.
So what are you
It's-
feeling?
The
today?
emptiness is gone from, we know where she's at now.
It's happy and sad.
Very.
You know, we know where she's at now. We don't have to worry that we don't know. We know where she's at. We know what happened. I mean, she's not ever gonna come back. But we know.
Have y'all been out to the cemetery?
No, not yet.
No.
And you said that you plan on bringing her back home to Sulphur Springs?
Mm-hmm.
You started that court proceeding?
That's not, no comment. We don't need to talk about that yet. It's down the road.
Hey, Sheriff, can you go and pop in real quick?
So let me remind everybody that, one, we've asked them to be careful what they say, okay? And two, that they just found out. We're talking less than a month. They just found out what happened to their sister over 30 years ago. So they're still processing a lot, and we haven't had a chance to really debrief them on the investigation aspect of it. We're talking about just the identification portion of it 3 weeks ago. So this is all still, I heard some things for the first time in just some of the conversation there. So this is still brand new to them. A lot of emotions going on, and they're being guarded just the way I like it, and I'm very happy about that. So forewarning, I'm going to be guarded too. So I think my detectives and Sergeant would appreciate that. But go ahead, Rudy, try it.
Yeah, with that said, I was going to ask the crack you there. What can you say about this investigation? You know, in cases like this, you know, it's a transition, not knowing who. Now you know who, you know why, or how. I guess you know how. So how close are we now? And you know, is this one of those things that's going to spin wheels for another few decades, or are you confident that this thing is going to take a different speed?
There's no way to know. I know this with Deborah Jackson's family. Once we found out Deborah Jackson's identity, it gave us a place to start, gave us places of employment that detectives have already went out of the city to check, gave us other people to talk to, where for 40 years we had nothing, no one to talk to, no witnesses, nobody that worked with her, nobody that could identify her with her, no places of acquaintances or locations to go to. We have that with Deborah Jackson now. It doesn't mean we're going to get any good results with that, but it gives us another point. I expect that same thing in this case. At least it gives us a point of reference to start talking to family members, to acquaintances, and move in that direction. So it's certainly a better position we were in just 3 weeks ago. So
You and I have had conversations offhandedly about how you were putting focus on cold cases, and this is kind of a result of this. I think we were talking about it a couple of years ago. What made you decide to do that, to focus on these old cases?
well, and I've talked about it many times, but you know, and we were actually talking about it earlier. One thing is two victims of current cold cases. Two of our top cases, the Rachel Cook case and the Ritchie case, are two cases that have a big interest for me personally, because I've talked to the families. They expressed some concern prior to me getting into office of how the cases were not getting work to their desire, and I know it's not because of these folks here, because they're working extremely hard. We just had to put an emphasis on importance and structure and making it a priority. And the only way to really do that is get those detectives out of that office and put them in an office that is specifically targeting those cases and those cases only. But you can't do that if you don't have the people to do that, because our detectives are extremely busy. I'm going to tell you, they are extremely busy doing taking care of your theft case or your robbery case. So it's a very difficult task to do. So what we tried to do was ask for volunteers. You see the Natalie who does the forensic art. She's an officer who is a forensic artist. She works for free for us. There are 100 cops. I see Detective Sam Strauss here. He works free for us. They come in and work free for us, and we have how many now? We have 21 detectives, experienced detectives that work for us for free, and that's why we're able to do that. And Sergeant McCorney, Detective Cox, and Detective Sapien, they're able to help supervise and control these detectives as far as command and control, and to make sure that flows. And you're seeing those results now. So it's more than just talk. You're seeing some payoff here, and when you see these faces and see these hearts that are obviously broken, and rightfully so, but you see a little bit of closure in a case that's still open, and we're hoping to get that closure for both of them, as well as other cases that we're still working hard on.
Sheriff, the medical examiner said that Sue Ann had been dead for about 2 weeks, possibly. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I'm not sure.
That's the estimate.
Okay, I thought it was a week.
Do the detectives believe that she was murdered here in Williamson County, or do you think that she was murdered elsewhere, brought here, and dumped? Considering, if I got my logistics right, the body's found on the east side of I-35, so that's heading northbound on 277 by the 277 exit. So that means Sulphur Springs is up here northeast. We're talking a loop. So do you think that she was murdered here in Williamson County, or was she dumped here?
So I'll tell you this, Rudy. I know that prior to me getting into office, with the Orange Sox case, Deborah's case, as well as many other cases, you could go on the internet and you almost get any evidence you wanted in any of these cold cases. And I will tell you, I'm not going to answer your question because it's an open investigation. Because some of the information you get online is not accurate. I've seen information on this case that she's 20 years old, up to 20 years old, that she's 13. There's so much misinformation. I'm going to let my sergeant and detectives do what they do best, and then that way I know we control the narrative and go from there.
Let me go back to
You can try.
Last question.
Okay.
Last question before we on from this investigation. Then she's going to pick up. Do you feel confident in your team that you're going to find out who did this?
You know, I can tell you this. I feel confident in my cold case team, period. I mean, we're here, and this is our second time being here and identifying a 40-year-old victim case and a 30-year victim case. So that's confidence in itself. I can tell you there's some struggles and some obstacles that I don't think anybody can sit here with great confidence and promise anybody a result that it would be unfair. But if anybody can do it, I can tell you this. This cold case team right here can do it, and I have complete confidence that that could happen. But I would be naive to sit here and tell you that I promise you can be done. Think about this. If I told you 2 years ago, I promise you that I would identify 2 victims of a 40-year and a 30, you would call me crazy. But I can tell you they're working extremely hard, and we're getting results, and we'll just let our work results demonstrate what we're doing and how good we are and how good they are. And they're already doing that, so we're going to work extremely hard. I told you that 2 years ago, and we're going to still work extremely hard, and we'll let the results speak for themselves.
Well, going back to 1989, and I imagine there were news stories done back then, but I didn't see how you put here. How was she discovered? Like, how was this discovery made? How was it reported?
My understanding, it was a work crew doing some work out there, cleaning up, and I think the worker was taking a restroom break and came upon her doing that. It's from my understanding. Am I correct? That's correct.
And he then called law enforcement and
Yes.
the investigation. Now, when did the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, when did it go cold on this? Were there leads right away?
So that's a tough question to answer. They, I reported 1989, detectives responded out there. They collected what evidence could be collected, sent the deceased to autopsy. But as far as the main, burden on them was identifying who she was to start. So other than what they had on scene and working what they had, which was just somebody calling it in, then the emphasis was put on trying to identify her. So doing the news stories on anybody having missing family members, we found, and there was no results on that. So at that point, it just kind of stalled, and we haven't really discovered any tips that may have come throughout the years. But, it's really hard to move a case forward. We don't know who the victim is. So that's kind of where it was at on that.
Have there been any new tips since your meeting with your least yesterday? I know it's kind of fresh, but have there been any new tips?
We have an email, coldcasetips@wilco.org, and we have a cold case tip line. It's 512-943-5204. We've been out in the field for the last couple of days on other cases working, so we're going to have to get that and filter through those tips and see what's there, if there's any at all.
And are there any new leads, new suspects, or anything?
I mean, anytime you identify a victim, you start, speaking with the family, and you can kind of figure out some things about a certain person or who they may have been associated with. That's still a new conversation we have to have with them, as well as try to do a victimology on her, right? Figure out, is there any reason why she could be, what school did she go to? All those little things that could lead us down the road to help with the case. So that's all brand new, fresh. We found out yesterday. We called sheriff, and here we are. So we're going to hit the ground running. There's a lot of stuff to follow up on, but we're moving forward.
So that's kind of like where you guys go from here, just talking to people, trying to find out names and.
Yeah,
I guess.
like Sheriff mentioned on Deborah Jackson case, we sent Detective Cox up to North Texas and start backtracking whatever you can come up with. It's employment, schools, family, friends, all that.
And just to confirm, we don't know why she was in Williamson County.
Not at this time.
To clarify, I don't think we have any new tips, but it was just yesterday. So, and they haven't been back to their desk really. It's all been concentrated on that. Our whole goal for the press conference today was to wait on the family. We knew some were driving in from out of state, and we knew they had a message they wanted to relay to the public, to seek the public's assistance in helping to identify the person that did this, to bring them to justice, as well as bring Deborah's family in as well. So with that said, we will ask you to please not call Mom to the media. She's up there, getting up there in her age, but they will be available after the conference, after they take a few-minute break, if you wish to talk to them. We are going to ask them not to discuss the case in detail, kind of like today, but they'll be available if they choose to do that, okay? We thank you all for coming.
Is there any Spanish?
Will Dupree again here in the KXAN live studio. You've been watching the live press conference from the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, where the Sheriff's Office identified the victim killed 30 years ago, that they did not have her name until yesterday. We now know the woman that's been known for 30 years as Corona Girl because she was wearing a shirt with that brand on it. Her name is Sue Ann Huskey. And I want you to take a look at this picture that we had been shown a little bit earlier. This is Sue Ann Huskey. So she is no longer known as Corona Girl. And I know that her family is feeling grateful for that. We heard from them as well, several of her sisters, her brother, as well as her nephew. We know that Sue Ann Huskey was 17 years old when she disappeared, and that her body was found in September 1989 on the side of I-35 in the Jarrell area. Her family said that they have now gotten their sister back and we can take her home. Their words were, quote, "We have closure." After all this time, they've been looking for her, sharing memories, holidays passed, birthdays passed, and never knowing where she was until now. She, again, was from Sulphur Springs, Texas, and the family said earlier that they are unsure how exactly she got to Williamson County. The Sheriff's Office reiterating that they are investigating this. They are trying to figure that out still as well. After all this time, that's been unclear, but now they at least have a name to tie to this homicide victim and go from there too. What we also know is that her identity was able to be finally determined because of the DNA Doe Project. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it is a nonprofit volunteer organization which works to identify unidentified people who died using forensic genealogy. So a lot of people submit their DNA for genetic testing to try to find out who their ancestors are, and this particular organization looks at unknown, unidentified people's deaths and missing people like that, and trying to piece together those things so they can finally have a name for those people. And for the second time in Williamson County, a cold case victim has been identified in this way. Earlier, you may have missed, another family came forward and spoke at this press conference before getting into the Corona Girl case. And those family members are related to the Orange Socks case, which is 40 years old in Williamson County. A woman had died and not been identified until just last summer, using this very same technology to identify her finally. And her family members talked. That woman's name is Deborah Jackson. For a long time, she had been known as Orange Socks because that's all she had on when her body was found, and they did not have any way to identify her until last year. Again, Deborah Jackson's family speaking at the very beginning of this press conference. Our live feed will be taken down and left on Facebook. You may want to go back and watch that because it was very touching to hear from that family because they were so emotional, not knowing where their family member was either after all this time. Very understandable there to hear, and what strong family members to come and speak after learning just yesterday in this particular case, the Corona Girl case, that she was indeed identified after all this time. The Sheriff's Office is also wanting people to come forward if they have information about this particular case because it is still ongoing. They do not know who killed Deborah Jackson in the Orange Socks case or Sue Ann Huskey in this Corona Girl case. So of course that has many different avenues, many different routes to go to try to wrap up that side of the investigation. But for the first time, Sue Ann Huskey's name is known publicly. Her family knows where she is now. After 30 years' time, they still did not know where she was until yesterday. Also interesting to note is that the family of Sue Ann Huskey said that the day after Christmas, the Sheriff's Office had contacted them saying that this particular homicide victim might be their loved one. Again, The confirmation did not come until yesterday, and then they showed up for this press conference to be able to share information about Sue Ann Huskey. I want to show you all once again details about her. I realize the picture is not the best quality, and we're working to improve that at the moment, but this is who Corona Girl is. She is not called that anymore. Her name is Sue Ann Huskey. She was 17 years old at the time she died. Her family confirmed to us yesterday that she was the victim in this case. Her body, though, was found on September 25th, 1989, and her name had not been known officially until yesterday. A huge break in this case. And obviously the sheriff's office would like to conclude it by finding out who killed her and what were the circumstances leading up to her death.